Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. Okay, apologies again, I missed last week. I know guys are looking forward to finish up this tutorial series. Like I said, I do have a day job and I can't always be here every single weekend, but I did promise that I would finish this tutorial, and this week is the last week where we are going to be deploying this website. Okay, so let's get through the admin part. Remember, if you are watching this video, to please leave me a like. It really helps my channel. Okay, do not dislike this video. If you've got something you want to say, you are more than welcome. The comments are always open. Leave me a comment, leave me a note, let me know what you're thinking in the comment below, and help along. And of course, do not be afraid to hit the thanks button and donate me a couple of cents, because this is video number 10 in the tutorial series, and it will be the last one where we are going to close everything up and we're going to deploy this website. Okay, so if you see me saying in the video, I'm going to link something in the description below, just click that show more button and open the description and you can see everything in there. And I will also have some timestamps in there for a lot of the videos, because our videos are very, very long. You can use the timestamps to jump over to a certain part of the video. And even when you come back in the future and you want to have a look, the timestamps are usually very helpful to take you to the different parts of the video. You don't have to watch the whole video. So I don't want anybody leaving me a comment telling me that why am I spending so much time explaining, because you actually don't have to watch the whole video. You can just go where you want to watch, or you don't even have to watch this video at all. Please just leave me a like or leave me a comment. All right, and in this video today, this week, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be deploying the website. So at the end of this video, you're going to have your own website running on your own domain with an SSL key. So everything that we've been building is going to be online and ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to address some of the questions I get. A lot of the majority of the questions I get right at the beginning. I know I'm covering it even during the video. I get so many requests for if I can build this for someone, and I want to just mention here that yes, I do run a development company, but that's not the purpose of these videos. It's not for me to build this thing for you. It's for me to show you how to do it. I have literally taken you through step by step from the beginning to the end. Everything is captured on camera. There's nothing that I've not done on camera. So if you actually start from video 1 until where we are right now, you should have your very own AI content generator tool. Okay, if you don't have the time to do it yourself and you really want to hire somebody, you're more than welcome to hire our tech company. Our company is called Digital, and we build this kind of softwares for people, and we can definitely do this for you, but we do not come cheap. Okay, so if you don't have a budget, then rather learn how to do it yourself. Okay, the next thing I want to cover here is I am not going to be sharing the code for this, because this is the next big question I get all the time, is that where is the code? Where is the GitHub repo? There will not be a GitHub repo. There will not be code that I will be sharing. The whole point of my tutorial series is not for me to give you code for you to go copy and paste, but it's for you to look at what I'm doing and code as I code, learn. Okay, this is a learning channel, so I want you to learn. There is no way for you to figure out how to do this if you do not do it yourself. Muscle memory, you actually have to type in the code. You have to get the errors. That's the next question that I get, is the errors. I get people copying and pasting me errors and emailing me errors. Guys, I do not have the capacity to go through each and every single email that comes along with a copy and paste of an error. The whole point of learning is to figure out also how to fix your own errors. Okay, if you get an error, go through the video again and try and figure out what you missed, because everything that I do on camera. I literally don't do anything off camera. All right, so you probably missed something when you were following along, so go through the video again. If you don't catch it by going through the video again, I've shown you again in the later part of the video. There's a website called Stack Overflow. All right, this website is specifically created for learning guys to come over here and post their problems so that other developers can answer your questions for you. Okay, create an account on Stack Overflow, type there where it says ask a question, click there, post your question, tell them this is the question I'm having. And with Stack Overflow, it's very, very important to put your code there so that they can see what the code is that is generating that error. You need to also explain what you've done to try and solve the error, because that usually gets more responses if people see that you are trying to solve your error. You can say, this is the error that I'm getting. I was trying to do this. This is my code. This is what I've done to try and fix it. I tried this, I tried that, but it's not working. Can someone help me? You will get an answer within a day. I used to use Stack Overflow. I still use it even today. Even I get errors. And if I can't fix something, I go there and I resolve it. And number 3, if you get an error, just read the error. Because I get so many screenshots of errors and I read the error and the answer is in the error. Okay, so just read it. Don't be afraid of getting errors. It's part of development. I get errors myself. Debugging is part of development. Do not be afraid. You're not going to break your computer by getting an error. Just read it. Understand what the error is. Try and go back through your code. Look at the video again. Go to Stack Overflow. Google the error. You can even literally copy and paste the error on Google. You'll find somebody already has asked that same question you're asking. Look at their answers. Troubleshoot your error. Even if it takes you 2 days to troubleshoot it. I've had an error that I took a whole week to troubleshoot until I found the solution. Okay, it's the normal part of development. And this is my last video for this tutorial series, so I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get into it and get learning deploying this website. In this video, we are going to finally deploy our website and make it go live, because there are certain things that you can only do after you've deployed your website, like the webhooks, what we discussed last week. So we need to put this website on an HTTPS location where it can be accessed online. All right, so there's a couple of things you need to have in place before you can deploy your website. And I hope you have been following along from the beginning, because you need to be where we are right now to deploy this. The first thing is that you need to make sure that your code is running on a remote server. You could have been running this on your own personal computer, but you won't be able to deploy it on your own personal computer. You would need to be running it on a remote server. If you have been following along exactly what we've been doing, you would already have that. So when we started building this website, we started on a DigitalOcean server, and I showed you exactly how to set up your DigitalOcean server to run this. This is the reason why, because when you reach the end and you want to deploy your website, you need your website to be on a remote server. So if you are not on a remote server and you've been running on your own personal computer, the code would still be working. Go back to video number 1 and check how we set up our DigitalOcean server. You would need to do that so that you are running on it. And you need to also make sure that your virtual environment is on, all right, and you are in the location, the root of the website where the manage.py file is, so that you can continue. All right, the next thing that you need is that you need a domain. Of course, you need a domain where you're going to deploy this website. And I normally buy my domains from domains.co.za, but you can buy anywhere really. You can even buy from Namecheap or whatever, whoever your domain provider is. Go and get yourself a domain that you want this website to be on. All right, if you don't have a domain, I would pause this video right now and go get a domain, and then figure out how to do the DNS settings. Okay, I can't show you the details of that in this video right now because it would take too long, but there is something that we call DNS settings. All right, I'm gonna write in the DNS settings. All right, if you are not sure how to do it, a lot of domain providers can help you. You will just need to maybe log a call to the support and ask them to please create a DNS setting for you on the domain that you have purchased. There's a lot that goes into this. You know, you need to have name servers and all sorts of things. That is why perhaps it might be easier to just buy it in domains.co.za. There's a video we've done on our channel somewhere in the past showing you how to set up a domain on domains.co.za and create DNS settings. I won't go through that detail right now. I'm going to assume that you have a domain and that you can edit the DNS settings. If you don't know, Google it. Pause this video right now, Google it and figure it out. Okay, once you get to the DNS settings, you need to create an A record. Okay, so there are two types of DNS settings that are important for deploying a website. The first one is what we call an A record. The A record is the most important one. This is the one that tells the provider how to route the the HTTP calls on your domain. All right, the A record must point to the IP address where you are running your code. So if you were following along and you've got a you've got a server with a DigitalOcean, that server has got that IP number. That's the same IP number that we use when we are running our code. So if I ran this website right now, remember how we run our website? We do python manage.py, we do run server, and then we do I think what are we using, 7210. You can use any port there, it doesn't matter. This is how we are running our computer, and then you would access it on the HTTP, right, using that IP number there, remember. So in this case it would be 104, all right, 248.202.7210. I think that's the one. This is where our website is currently. So this IP address is where your website is located. That is the address of the server that we're running on. That is the number that you need to put in onto your A record. So I'm going to copy it from my notes where I've written it nicely. I need to create here that A record that points to that. So you need to put it under the value. When you're creating an A record, you've got a value and you've got a host. All right. So the domain that I'm going to be working from is my Scholar Online domain. So which means I actually can't use the A record of the main domain. All right. But what I'll do is that I'll use the A record of a domain. So if you want to create a subdomain, you just need to change the host to whatever the subdomain that you want to create. So my subdomain, in my case, I'm going to call this Karabo, which means that people will access this website by going to karabo.scholar.online. All right, so it's going to be a subdomain of my main domain. If you bought another domain somewhere else, you would not need to put a host here. You could just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, it will be the A record of the main domain. So whatever your domain name is, it will be that a domain that will be created there. And if this confuses you, the DNS settings, just log a call with whoever your provider is. If you're using domains, they are very good with this kind of things. They can even create these records for you. You just tell them, please create for me an A record that points to this IP address, and then you give them the IP address and they'll do it for you. All right, so I'm going to save this record. Okay, you can use a TTL of 120, that's okay, and it must be an A record, and I'm going to save it quickly. I'm going to just say add a record. It has saved successfully. You need to give it a little bit of time for the record to propagate. It takes like 30 minutes to an hour, but that's why this is where you need to start. So I'm going to close this window. That's all you need to do is to create the A record. What you can also do is that you can create a CNAME record for www, because some people like to access your website using www. I don't always do it because it ends up creating two different websites, right? So what you can also do is that you can create another, what we call a CNAME record for www.karabo.scholar.online. all right, you can create a CNAME record for this to point to karabo.scholar.online. all right, so you can do this as well, and then this means that if somebody goes to www, it will point. It's just normal good practice to do this, but if you do create a CNAME record for www, you need to also best practice is to then create another record that you will do it inside of your in Jinx file, where you need to catch anyone that goes to www and reroute them to scholar.online, so that you don't end up having two different websites otherwise. But when we get to that, I'll show you. However, I prefer not to do this, okay, so that I only have the main website, karabo.scholar.online, and if somebody goes to www.karabo, then they don't find anything, and then they just have to remove the www. all right, so we've done that. Once we've done that, we're going to give it some time, and then we're going to go to the rest of our steps that we need to follow. So there's a couple of things that you need to do to get your project ready, and I've got a note inside of scholar.online documentation. I will link this in the description, but if you watch a lot of my videos, you would know where this website is right now, because we refer to it a lot. Okay, so there's a lot of things in here that I've already listed for you step by step, how to build a Django website, from getting started with Django, Django, to the settings, to the models, to the forms, to the Django views, how to do PDF generation, sending emails using Django, Django signals. There's a lot, deploying a Django application, and static assets in production. Okay, so there's a lot of things inside of our documentation website. I'm going to link it in the description. So under deploying a website, where is it? That's where I am right now, actually, but I'm trying to find it on the deploy Django app. All right, this is where we are right now. So you need to go to the deploy Django app, and we're going to follow the steps here to deploy our Django application. So the first thing is that you need to make sure that the domain that you've selected, you have it in the allowed host of your settings.py file. Okay, so if you go to Karabo and you go to the settings.py file, you need to look under allowed hosts. Currently we only had in there our IP address, so you need to add in here the website that you're going to be deploying to. So I think in our case it's going to be karabo.scolo.online. You need to add this in here. You need to also add if you're going to do the www. All right, so I'm going to put it in here anyway so that it's there, even though in my case I'm not going to do it. You might want to do the www as well. All right, so you need to add that. Okay, I'm going to leave this one on and not remove it because I still want to be able to do a lot of other things in here. Then the most important thing that you need to do here, all right, and this you must not forget. When you create the Django application the first time, there's a secret key that is default, right? You need to go and change that secret key to any string that you know. All right, so, and this can be, it must be a long string, and you must change it, and you must make it like something that people can't guess. So normally I just sort of like try to find a random string here to work with. All right, it must include special characters, numbers, letters, capital letters, small letters, more special characters, more letters. Just make it as long as possible so that people can't guess it. This is very, very important because this is what keeps your information encrypted and so forth, for people not to be able to hack your website. If they can guess it, they can pretty much do a lot of damage to your website. The next important thing is debug. All right, at this point you want to set debug to false. All right, because when you set debug to true, every time your app crashes, you'll notice you get that page which shows you the details of what your app has crashed, and so that you can debug and figure out what the problem is, right? But you don't want that to be the case in production, because you don't want people to see that information, because it has a lot. It even shows the settings.py file information, and people can figure out your application, and then it can really damage your app. So every time you set your app to production, you need to set debug to false. All right, so that you are not debugging. And there is a nice warning that Django puts there: do not run with debug turned on in production. Okay, so we are going to be going into production, so our debug is going to be false. Then obviously the PayPal secret, that's very, very important. Remember we were working on the PayPal a test mode. Obviously we will then move it to production mode. I'm not going to do that in here, but you will learn from what I've showed you. You should know how to then move it to production. You obviously will need the proper production PayPal details, and you will replace those over here. Okay, I think that's pretty much all you need to do over here. We're going to keep this database as it is. We're not going to change it. But of course, in production, you do want to not have your username and your password as password. You might want to set up a new database. So the next thing that you need to do is you need to install GUnicorn. Okay, and this is very, very important, that you need to install it inside of the environment that you're running in. All right, so this command, if you run this command before installing GUnicorn, you're gonna have a bit of an error. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and you need to make sure that when you run this pip install GUnicorn, now close that. You need to make sure that if you run this pip install GUnicorn, you are inside of the virtual environment. Okay, you are inside of the environment that you're installing it in, and then you do that. And I think I would have already installed it at the beginning, but if you're not sure, just run this command again. Okay, so that's good to go. We're good to go. We have GUnicorn running, and then you want to test your GUnicorn, that your GUnicorn is running properly. Okay, so I'm going to restart this one and refresh this website, you see it's not running because I'm not running the server. Okay, so you need to then test this command, all right, to make sure that your GUnicorn is running. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in here, and then I'm going to show you what this command is. It's going to bind, it's going to use GUnicorn, because Unicorn is now a production level, sort of a way to run your application. And it's going to bind it on port 8000. Okay, we don't want to bind it on port 8000. We want to bind it on the same port we've been working with, because I think I've closed port 8000. So just change this to the port that you're running it on. And then you'll see where it says your project.wsgi. The reason for this, your project, you need to replace it with the name of your application. Okay, and not just the name of our application, but if you look at your folder structure, right, you have the main app name over there, Karabo, and then you've got Karabo here where your settings.py file is. If you look inside of this folder, there is also a file called WSGI. All right, so this WSGI file is inside Karabo.wsgi file. This is why we call this we say this is your application name, but really it's the location of your WSGI file, because the WSGI file is the one that is going to be running your application. Okay, so this is very, very important. Django offers you two ways of running your application. You can either run it via WSGI, or you can run it via ASGI. All right, both of them are already available for you to use. The ASGI is the async method of running your application, and you would use this if you've got not signals, but there are certain use cases where you might want to run your application in async mode, and I'm not going to cover that in this video today, but I think I've done it in a previous tutorial. Maybe in the future we'll do it, but for now you can even delete this file. You don't need it. You only need the WSGI one, because we are running it in that format, and this is what this command is doing. It is going into that file, and then it's binding it, and then it's running it on GUnicorn. All right, so if you run this and you don't have any errors, it means that GUnicorn is properly installed. But for you to make sure, I'm going to go back here. You'll see that now I can, if I refresh this again, I have the application back up. It's now being run via WSGI. And if you go over there, you should see some, every time you change something, it will show there. So if you're at this stage and you're running properly, you're good. You can sort of like stop this one. You can stop it. And if you stop it and you go back here again and you refresh it, you see the website is gone again. It was being run via WSGI. So that means that you're good. All right, so you're following this step, and then you can now deactivate your virtual environment. Okay, so we are going to deactivate this, and we are not in the virtual environment anymore. In fact, you can even cd to the root of the application of your virtual server at this point, because the commands we're going to run now, you don't need to be running them inside of your virtual environment. You can be running them anywhere. So the first thing, there are two steps to running your app. The first thing is that you need to create a system file that is going to have a what we call a socket. All right, and then you need to run, then you're going to use GUnicorn to run that system file. All right, the next thing that you're going to do is then you're going to create a Nginx server, which is like a proxy server, to then point to that socket that is being run by the GUnicorn thing. So it's a couple of steps, but the reason why we use a system file is that system files are very unique in the sense that if anything happens, and this happens all the time in the servers, we want your website to persist, to be always on. So if something happens with your virtual server, like somebody switches it on and off, which happens during maintenance or any sort of thing, the system files are always restarted every time your machine restarts. Okay, so it's a very reliable and sort of like robust way to run your application. It will be up all the time, and it will up for as long as your machine is up. This is why you need to be deploying this in a cloud server that is being maintained by somebody else, because if you run this on your own personal computer, the moment you switch off your computer, you cannot be serving the file anymore, the website will be down, right? But if it's a cloud server, it's always going to be up. But because they maintain these servers all the time, they go on and off. Sometimes, something happens, there's a power outage, you need your system MD file to then kick in and remain on every time your server then gets put back on. You don't have to remember, oh, there was a shutdown, I must go restart my application again. The system MD file sorts it out for you. So that's why we're doing it that way. And in Jinx, the Jinx part, this is just where, this is like your proxy server. This is the one that sort of listens on port 80 for HTTP requests when somebody goes onto their website, onto the internet and says, I'm looking for scholar.online, all right? And you go to this, the DNS that you've created there when you created your application points them to the IP address that you have put in on that A record. When the request reaches that IP address, the Jinx server is the one that picks that up and routes it to the correct application based on the settings that you have given it inside of the Jinx file. You understand? So there's a couple of steps that goes into you being able to serve your application on HTTPS. But you don't have to remember all of these things, what I'm saying. You just have to remember to follow the steps accordingly as I have put it on this website. You'll be okay. All right, you don't have to know the technicalities of it. You just have to properly follow these steps. So the first thing is that we need to do is we need to create a socket file. Okay, so you just need to copy this and paste it. So let's close all of that. In fact, what we'll do is that we'll put this closer there because so that I can do this better. So what this is doing is it's opening a certain location, okay? etc system ND system. This is like a location inside of your virtual server, and inside of this location is going to create a file that's called gunicorn.socket. I don't want to call this file gunicorn. I want to call it my application name so that I know if I'm running multiple applications in the same server, I want to know which application is which socket. Okay, so I'm going to call this Karabo socket. Okay, Karabo.socket. And the reason why you use sudo is that you are running this as a super user, because in this location you need to have a root super user rights to be able to open or close or create any file in here, because it's a protected location, because it's very, very important. Obviously you're running your websites from here. You need to run it as a super user. All right, so I'm going to click enter. Then it's going to ask me for my super user password, which I'm going to give it. And then you'll see what happens is it's opening. This is actually a file. All right, this is a file. You can see at the top there, etc system ND system Karabo.socket. That's the name of the file. That's the location where the file is kept. And nano is the application that you're using to open this file. If you look at the bottom over there, it even says new file there. All right, so it's actually a file that is empty, that doesn't have anything in it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to then copy what is in here into that file. All right, so just copy this in there and paste it in there. All right, so what is in here? The description of the socket. Okay, I didn't want to call it gunicorn socket. I want to call it Karabo socket. All right, and then at the bottom here, the listening stream is the name of that's going to be given to that socket. So again, I don't want to call it a gunicorn socket. I want to call it a Karabo socket. All right, and then at the bottom here, you're just going to leave that one socket target. Okay, so just double check that everything is okay with this file. It's a new file, and then when you finish updating the file on your computer, if you're running on a Mac, you need to close this file. You just do a Control X. All right, so Control X closes the file. I think if you're on the Windows, find the equivalent of Control X. All right, so I'm gonna just do that Control X, and then it's gonna say, or at the bottom it's actually a question. Just note what it's saying there: save modified, yes or no. So what this means is that because you've changed the file, it's a new file, it's asking you, do you want to save it? If you say no, it will not save it, but I want to save it, so I'm going to type actually no, let me socket. All right, so file name to write is actually yes, so I'm just going to do enter. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to type yes, I'm just supposed to say to pick the yes or no from the selection and then click enter. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that this file actually exists, I'm going to show you. Remember, you are now in the root of the virtual server. What you can do is that you can navigate to this location. All right, so I'm going to copy this. Why is this not copying? There you go. I want to copy this whole thing. Why is this not copying? What's happening? I want to copy. Actually, I can just do it like this. I can just type it in. I want to cd etc. I want to cd into system D, and then I want to cd into system. All right, there you go. And then if you list everything that's in here, there's a lot of things in there, but you should be able to see your Karabo socket file in there as well. You see, there it is. All right, so if you do nano and you open it up again, you should be able to see everything that you have typed in there. So your file is there together with all the other files that are in there. All right, so this shows that the file was actually created properly, and you can just double check everything is okay. You don't have to do this all the time. I'm just showing you what we were doing was actually creating this file. And you see now it's saying the file is unwritable here because I just opened it as nano. All right, so I can control X again and close it. If I want to be able to edit it, I must use sudo before I use nano. Okay, then I can still do paste that file name in there. This time it's not unwritable. I can actually make changes to it if I want to. So if you want to make changes to the file, you must do sudo in front of the nano. Nano is actually a command to open that file using the nano application, which comes already pre-installed inside of your DigitalOcean. If you're using the Linux system, Nano comes as part of the standard apps in there. You don't have to install it; it's there. But if you want more complicated, you can install other, text editors in there that are more complex. But Nano is usually sufficient for the kind of work that we need just to deploy an application, because you're mostly going to be editing the files outside of the virtual server anyway, and you're going to push them to your app, and you don't really need to do any complex editing inside of the server, except just a couple of files here and there to deploy the app. So I'm going to get out of this location and go back to the root, because I was just showing you what was happening there. Okay, so the next thing that you need to do is to create a service file. Okay, again, I've got everything pretty much for you here. Okay, all you need to do is just to follow these steps and you'll be good. All right, so you're gonna again use a sudo nano. Okay, and then this is again another file, but instead of the service of the socket file, it's now a service file. All right, so I'm going to, instead of calling it GUnicorn service, I'm going to call it Karabo service. So everywhere there's GUnicorn, I'm replacing it with Karabo, and you can do the same, or you can just leave it as GUnicorn. It depends. I want to deploy multiple apps in this same thing, so I don't want to call it GUnicorn. I want to know what I've called the application, what it's running. Okay, so I'm gonna click enter, and you can see again it opens for you another nano file, which is blank, and it's a new file. So you need to then paste this content into that file. Okay, but I'm going to before I paste them into that file, I'm gonna paste them in something like let me just maybe create a new file. Let me call it text.txt. Doesn't matter what it is. I just want to paste this in here so that so you can see what it is that you're pasting. Okay, so because it's easier to edit it in here instead of editing it in inside of the virtual server. So I don't want to call it the GUnicorn demo. In fact, I'm going to search for everywhere there's GUnicorn, and I want to replace that with Karabo. Okay, so replace everywhere with GUnicorn with Karabo, replace all. Good. Then over here, so this is now the description is Karabo daemon. It requires the Karabo socket, which is the file we just created now. All right, that's why you create the socket file first before you create the service file. Then after that, you'll see inside of the service itself is there's a user that needs to be running this service. Okay, so how do you want to run this user? There's a couple of ways you can do it. You can run it as root, which is not recommended, but I'm going to run it as myself, as the user that I am in this machine. Okay, and I am Izatosh. So that is my username in here. So I'm going to change this to that. So you're going to put whatever your username is when you create this. And this is a user that you created at the beginning when you created your application. Remember, when we first created our virtual server, I told you that the default user is always root. And we went through the steps of creating another user, and we said add user, and then we created another user. And then we were able to then log in as that user. So every time we SSH into our virtual server, we're SSHing as that user. Remember, and that is a user that you need to put in here, because you're gonna find, like maybe with a big organization, there's multiple users on a server, on a machine, and maybe they're all running different applications. So it's very important to remember which user is running which application. And it's probably good practice to have a different user for every different application that you're running on your system, so that you can sort of separate those kind of things and know, who's doing what. So the user that I've created is this one. So just put that username in there. Okay, the group www data, leave this one. This is a default group inside of the Linux, which normally runs the web apps anyway, so just leave that on. The next important thing is your working directory. This is the physical location where the manage.py file is. Okay, so the manage.py file is let's just stop this. Let's do Control X and close this. All right, and we will run this again. Let me just copy this so that I know why is this not copying? This is just so weird. I should be able to copy this thing. I want to paste it in there. Okay, sudo nano, so that I know I can just copy it from here the next time. Okay, so if you sort of root yourself into navigate to where the application is, you'll remember, I think we called it development Karabo ls. This is where your manage.py file is located. Okay, so this path is the path that you need. Okay, but you need the absolute path, so you need to actually start from home. All right, so normally it's a home, your username. So whatever the username is that you're using is usually what needs to come in there first. And then I'm using Zatosh, and then after that, the path to your project directory. Okay, so the path to the project directory is this one over here. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, okay, and paste that in there. All right, and it is home, it is Zatosh, it is development, it is Karabo. Okay, so the next part, make sure there are no spaces. This is the executive start order that is going to be run. So every time the system MD has to restart your application, it's going to be running this order. Okay, so what is this order? It is the path to your virtual environment, because remember, you need to run every time inside of your virtual environment, because the virtual environment is where you've installed all of your things that are needed to run your application. Remember, yeah, so this is the path to the virtual environment there. All right, and then after that, it accesses the log file. There's workers, and then it binds the socket, and then the socket that it binds it to the WSGI application using a GUnicorn. All right, so you need to just make sure that all of this, you have updated it accordingly. Okay, so this is your virtual env. Your project env is your virtual environment. So make sure that you root this to the home. Your username is going to be Zatosh. All right, the path to your project environment is actually Karabo. The first, if you look here, the virtual environment is not in here. It's actually a step up the way we did it, if you followed along. Okay, so you just need to make sure that you are routing it to the virtual environment. Okay, so the location of the virtual environment, so it's actually it will be home, your username, it will be development Karabo, and then it will be the environment. Okay, so it will be home Zatosh, it will be development. All right, it would be development, then it would be the first Karabo, and then it would be my project environment here. It will be Karabo env. And then inside of Karabo env, there is the bin. All right, and then so this one should be GUnicorn. So the first GUnicorn I know I ran everything and I replaced everything with Karabo, but actually this G Unicorn you don't want to replace with Karabo, because this is actually the G Unicorn a package that is inside of your virtual environment when you did pip install G Unicorn. So this needs to be G Unicorn. Okay, so if you had replaced this to if you had replaced all, you need to take it back to G Unicorn, because that is the path that is going to be running this WSGI application. Now, to make sure that this is correct, and if you're doing this for the first time, all right, and you are not sure that you've got this exec start is very, very important. If you don't get this path right, your whole application is not going to run, and you're going to be trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and it's going to take you hours to troubleshoot and Googling. So the best practice, once you've created this working directory in this file, right, just copy them as they are, right, and go here and let's say and cd out, right, clear this and try to cd in here and paste it in there, and try to cd in there and see if it takes you to the working directory, right? So try and cd that and look in there, and you are in the working directory, then you know you got that path right. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the root, and then I'm gonna try to do the exact same thing with G Unicorn. All right, I'm gonna copy this whole thing and I'm going to try and cd in there. All right, and okay, so it says G Unicorn is not a directory. Okay, so let's try and cd just to the file ahead of it. All right, bin, let's try that. So that's also not right. Okay, so let's see, development Karabo, let's try and cd in there. Then let's try and cd in there. There you go, Karabo env. All right, if we're in Karabo env and we try to cd into the bin, it is a directory, so why wouldn't it so after Karabo env you should be able to be inside of the bin, and if you look inside of the bin, you should be able to find a G Unicorn in here, right? Can I not cd G Unicorn? It's not a directory, it's a file. Okay, so development Karabo env bin, let's just copy that again. I don't understand why this won't copy. There you go. I'm just gonna copy this and replace it in here, just to make sure that I'm in the right. Oh no, just from the development part, just from the development. But it was right. So this is the right location. So just do those little checks, especially if you're doing this for the first time. Okay, just to make sure that it makes sense that this actually routes to the bin, and double check that route inside of your virtual server. Make sure that if you list this bin, you can find G Unicorn in here. All right, these are all the packages that you install when you install your wheel, your Django admin, and all of these other ones. They all install inside of the bin of the env is your virtual environment. Okay, so make sure that all of these things are in there. It's just a double check step that I like to do, especially if I'm doing this for the first time. Okay, these ones you don't need to change. The workers you can leave as 3. You can increase the workers if you want, but they just take up more memory. So it's up to you. But for a small application, I think these are fine. And then you need to bind the socket. This is the same socket that is at the top there, and then you need to bind it to the WSGI application. Okay, so remember the WSGI application is inside of Karabo. If you look at your Karabo file, inside of your folder, inside of because it's going to go into the working directory, and inside of the working directory is going to activate the virtual environment, and then after it activates the virtual environment, it's going to run this socket and bind it to this WSGI, and this WSGI is sitting inside of this folder like I explained earlier on. So this command, which we used to run manually, remember this command that we ran manually here, this command, this is system file is actually doing the exact same thing, right? It's running this command for us, but instead of us running it manually the way we were running it, it's now going to be running it inside of the system file. So you're actually like writing this command ahead of time so that the system file knows what command to run. Okay, so you're explaining to the system file, I want you to run this command, but instead of binding it to a port, it's binding it to a socket file, which is the one that we created at the top there. So it's very advanced stuff, but it's very important that when you copy this code, you actually understand what the code is doing. That is why I'm taking the time to explain these things step by step, because there's a lot of people that want to just copy and paste my code. I get so many questions. Can you please send us the files on somewhere where the file would have been saved, so they can just copy and paste the stuff and run it, and you're running code that you don't understand what the code is doing. It's very, very important. If you're going to learn how to become a good developer, you have to know what exactly is happening. What is your code actually doing? These things that you're copying and pasting off the internet, what are they specifically doing? That is why my videos are so long, and that is why I actually don't like to share my code, because I want you to write it yourself. I want you to watch the video, and I want you to listen to what I'm explaining, and I want you to go and write it yourself, because that's the only way you're going to learn. I want you to experience those errors. Okay, experience those errors, and I want you to Google those errors and troubleshoot those errors. That is how you become a good developer, by understanding what the code is doing and troubleshooting those errors and figuring it out yourself. That is why I'm not going to just let you copy and paste my code somewhere on GitHub. Okay, I'm not going to put this code on GitHub for you to copy and paste it. Specifically, I did that on purpose because I want you to actually write the code yourself. I want you to learn how to do it and understand what that code is doing, right? So this is what this piece of code is doing, right? And after that, let me see, where are we now? I know I'm talking a lot, but it's very important that you understand these things that I'm saying, all right? Because we are here to build developers, not to build Xerox machines that just are very good at copying and pasting stuff. I'm not here to teach you how to copy and paste. I'm here to teach you how to develop, all right? So now, I think we're good to go. All right, we've changed everything. You understand what this file is. I'm going to go back and now copy that and paste that in there and reopen that system file. All right, and then this is where we are, and then you can just now you can copy and paste this, because now you have understood and you have checked everything. I'm going to cut it from here and I'm going to paste it in there. All right, so I'm good. I'm going to do Control X. Control X closes this file. It's going to ask me to save modified buffer, and I'm going to say yes. And write to that file name, Karabo service, yes, and you can just enter that. Okay, that's good. And you can also double check it, go and check that the file is there, but of course it will be there. All right, then what you need to do now is to run the socket file first, and then you enable the socket file, then you check the status, and then you check the status of the system file. So these are some of these things. You don't really have to do it, but to start and to enable, you must do that. That's important because your socket has not started. So sudo systemctl start the GUnicorn socket. Okay, so remember we called it Karabo socket, we didn't call it GUnicorn. So I'm just going to replace this GUnicorn here with Karabo. All right, and provided you did everything right at this stage, you shouldn't see anything. It means you did everything right. If there was a problem, you would get an error at this point, right? If you don't get an error, no error is good. Then you do, for example, if I rerun this as let me say Karabo, let me just put in some other name of a socket I never created, right? You'll see it will say fail to start because the socket is not found. So if you find an error like this at this stage, just go back and check your file that everything is okay, because I'm trying to show you that this command can create an error. If it runs without you seeing something like that, it means that the socket has been started successfully. Then I'm going to enable that socket. So the same thing, instead of enabling the GUnicorn socket, I need to replace this because I called my socket Karabo. So I'm enabling my Karabo socket, and you should see a feedback saying that we've created a symlink, and you should see something like what you're seeing in front of me right now, and that means you're good to go. All right, if you see that, you are good. You can even do so these ones are status checks, so you can do this to check the status. All right, so check the status of the Karabo socket. All right, so you should see this. It should show you that, and then it means you're good. It means everything ran properly. and then you can now check the status of the G unicorn, the system file itself. All right, so instead of G unicorn number, we call our system file Karabo. Okay, so let's check that, and you should see Karabo service file loaded, enabled, and it's triggered by that socket. Okay, and that's good. Okay, when you see this, I think you're good to go. It means that the application is running. So the application is actually running on that socket file that you created. You don't see it now because there's no way for us to access that socket. That this is when Jinx comes in. So Jinx is the one that then connects the HTTP domain to that socket file so that you can now access it via HTTP. You see the steps that we're following now. That's what's happening there. So you need to make sure that you've installed Jinx. Jinx does not come by default inside of your virtual machine. So you need to actually run the update first. And then you need to after you've run the update, then you need to install Jinx, okay? But I think I've already installed Jinx, but run it anyway, because if you created this virtual server with me, you would not have Jinx installed. Jinx is the proxy server that we're going to use to direct our HTTPS requests to our application socket, okay? So it was not installed, so you are going to be experiencing the full installation with me over here. So I'm installing Jinx for the first time on this virtual server, so that's really good. So that's been installed. So basically you just run these two commands, you install Jinx, and then after that you then create a Jinx file. Okay, so the same thing that we've done over there, I'm going to copy this file, this code over there, and paste it here so that we can go through this code and exactly what this code is doing, so that you understand what we have in there, so that you're not a copy paste machine, but you are a proper developer understanding what the code is doing. The first thing, inside of Jinx, you can create what we call server blocks. All right, a server block is a block inside of the Jinx settings or the Jinx configuration that tells that does a certain task that you give it. All right, and in this specific case, it's going to be listening on port 80. All right, and this is the default port for HTTP requests. Okay, so the first time you run this, it's going to be only on HTTP. We don't have HTTPS yet, because to do HTTPS we need to install a SSL certificate, which we will do. All right, so we're going to do this in two steps. The first step is we're going to just do the HTTP without the HTTPS, and then we will do the HTTPS later. So the HTTP is the website running without an SSL certificate, but that's okay. Okay, that's the first step we need to do. So it listens on port 80, port 80 of the virtual server. So remember when we were running this request today, right? We were running them on port. Remember, this is the port number on port 8000. Okay, so every machine, every computer has got ports, right? And there are certain ports that do certain things. Right, port 80 is a port that is reserved for HTTP requests. You will not be able to bind this unicorn to port 80 yourself, because it's reserved. There are certain ports that are reserved for certain things, like port 22 is reserved for SSH. Certain ports are reserved for certain things. That is why when we started creating this virtual server, if you remember, okay, you might not remember, but then go back and watch that video. When we were securing our machine, we had to do the firewall, and we closed all the ports with the firewall, and we only left the Jinx ports open. I can't remember if we did that. I think we only left the one port open, which we are using for running our machine. You need to do that anyway. So check how to secure your, I think I've done this video somewhere in my video list. Okay, you need to close all the ports except the ports that you're using for your machine. So now remember, the UFW, this is the firewall, the default firewall application inside of your thing. You need to check that all the ports are closed except the ports that you're running. So port 80 is the default port for HTTP requests. And now anytime someone goes to your IP address, and just goes to your IP address like that without the port at the end, it actually directs them to port 80. All right, so that's what we need to do there. But people don't actually type in the IP address. When I go to your website, I don't go and type in 104.104.248. People will not remember these numbers. That is why we have domains. Someone will type in scholar.online. What then Nginx does is that it listens on that port 80 and listens on the server that the person has typed in. All right. So the server that we're gonna be doing this on is going to be that server that's called, I think we created karabo.scholar.online. Right at the beginning, when we started, we created that A record from our domain service provider, and we said that A record for the subdomain Karabo on Scholar Online website must point to this IP address. You remember that? So this is where the connection comes in. That IP address, when someone now goes to the domain service provider and now types in this, karabo.scholar.online, it should send them to this IP address over here. Okay, that is the A record. And when it sends them to this IP address over here, it's going to get picked in by that Nginx file, and that Nginx file is going to then serve this application that is sitting on, it's not gunicorn.sock, it's actually karabo.sock. So this is the Karabo socket. Okay, you can do a Nginx file for saving any type of application, even a static app you can use in Nginx. And instead of this socket, you would have the location of your HTTP of your index.html file, for example. So you could serve anything literally you want in here. We are serving the socket, but you could serve the index.html. You could serve anything depending on how your application is being run. So these are specific. This is specific for the way we have built our Django application on this socket, right? Then what's important, Nginx is also serving, the nice thing about Nginx is that you can serve multiple locations. So remove this fave icon, unless if you've got a faveicon.ico. Remember, you need to also serve your static files, right? Because now your static files are not going to be served via the URLs like we used to do before. If you look at your urls.py, you see when you were in debug mode, your URL patterns included this media URL and the media root. Okay, now inside of your Nginx, you need to actually serve the media location separately. This is if somebody uploads a document. If you look at your settings.py file, if you go to the bottom of your settings.py file, there are two locations that are very, very important that you need to serve. Okay, your static files is where you've kept all your static folders, and your media file root is where you keep all the uploads. If somebody uploads a document, it gets uploaded inside of the uploads inside of your media URL. And if your static files are kept in here. So your static files are these ones: your admin, your landing, your main. All of your static files which need to be served with the application are in here. So we are going to be now in production. We're going to be serving our static files using the Nginx, using the Nginx service. So over here, you need to, for example, have the location of the static file, and this is now the path to your project directory. So remember, the path to the project directory is home. It is your username is Zatosh, whatever username is that you've selected. It is then development. It is then Karabo. It is then Karabo. And you can double check this again. You can copy this, and you can go in here, and you can CD in there and paste that, and double check that your static folder is here. This is where your static folder must be in this location. So Nginx knows to go to this location to find the static folder. And then obviously once you've done this, everything inside of the static folder will be properly mapped, and then you'll be able to find your static files. If you don't do this correctly, you'll find that you cannot access your static files and that you're having an issue. So this is very, very important. And if you're going to have any uploads inside of your application, you must do the same thing for the uploads folder. And the uploads folder is also in the same location. You can just replace this uploads with that, and this is the uploads folder. This is where all the uploads would go. I know in this application we're not uploading any documents. We're just doing in fact we're barely using the database just to store this, the blogs and the whatever. I don't think anybody's uploading any documents, but so this probably is not necessary, but it's a standard thing that I do in all my Django applications so I don't forget it. because if I then you'll forget it, and then you'll be wondering why your uploads are not showing. All right, so I just do it for both anyway, because every application normally has the static and the upload. Most of the applications do. In this specific case, we just don't have uploads. So this is very important that you check all of this. You check that the server name Karabo is there. If you had the www, you might want to serve that as well. All right, this is where you would now serve it. This is where you would say www.karabo.scholar.online. You would have the same thing. So what this would be doing, if you do it like this, you would basically be serving two different servers. You would be serving scholar.online and www.scholar.online, which some people sometimes like use www. So you want to capture those people as well, and you don't want it to show an error when someone clicks www. The problem with this is that this is very bad for your SEO, because typically what this does is that it replicates your website. So this socket gets run twice. It gets run on the scholar.online and it gets run on the www, and then you literally have two different applications on the internet at the same time. That is bad for SEO, because it's like plagiarism. SEO looks at it as you are like, you have two different apps. Sometimes it doesn't know which one to show. So I normally try to avoid this. But if you have to do it, what you can also do is that you can create another server underneath here which captures www and just reroutes it to Karabo. So you can create like a 301 permanent redirect. You can Google how to do that. Okay, so you can what they call it, a 301 redirect. So if anybody types www, instead of you serving www as well, you rather create a redirect for www, so that you capture it and then you just redirect it to Karabo, so that even if someone types www, it will capture it. That is probably the best practice, so that you don't lose out on people that still for some reason want to put www in front of a website URL. But nowadays you actually don't need it anymore. I just do karabo.scholar.online and I don't put the www. Okay, but if you do the www, remember to also serve the SSL certificate on that as well. Otherwise you get another error. So I just avoid it completely by not doing it. Okay, I don't do the DNS for it, then I don't have to worry about serving that www over here. But if you did create a DNS for www, that's if you did the CNAME, you must make sure that you serve it as well on the Nginx file by doing what I showed you there, putting it as an extra server or putting a redirect at the bottom here. I'm not going to show you how to do the 301 redirect. It's a very easy thing to Google on the internet and you can figure it out. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this now. This location is correct. It's home Zatosh development, and I did test it that it takes me to the right location, and I'm serving the uploads and I'm serving the static and I'm serving all of these, and then the location is that one over there. Cool. So I'm going to go back to the root here again, and I'm going to go and where am I? Where's my documents? What do I need to do? I need to create I need to open the Nginx file. All right, so sudo nano, remember you're opening it as a super user, and then nano is the text editor, and then this is the location. Okay, so you always have to use sudo in this location, and instead of your project, we're going to just call this Karabo. All right, and then it creates a nano file, and then you just paste what we did in here. So I'm just gonna just cut this and paste it in there. Right, so you're good like that. So everything looks good from here. I'm just going to close it, save the buffer, yes, and then save into that file. All right, then the next thing that you need to do is to enable this file. Okay, don't forget this step, because currently you have it under sites available. There are two different locations that Nginx looks at. There's sites available and sites enabled. All right, sites available is where you actually put the physical file and then you create a symlink to the sites enabled. All right, so this line is very, very important. Don't worry about what it's doing. You can just copy and paste it and just make sure you don't forget to do it. And remember, your project was actually called Karabo. So everywhere your project is, just remember to replace that with Karabo, and then create it. And if you don't get an error, you're good. If there was an error, you would see it right now. All right, and then it's very, very important to check the Nginx configuration, that you didn't make an error. Maybe you forgot a curly braces or whatever, this command just checks that your settings are fine on the Jinx file, and it will tell you that the configuration test is successful. You need to see this. If you don't see this, and you must also, the syntax must also be okay. All right, so this is just a test before you restart in Jinx. Okay, so once you've done that, then you restart your Jinx, and then you should be good. Don't restart in Jinx until you run a successful test, because you could break your entire, you could break other websites, because normally I would be running multiple applications on the same like digital ocean Droplet, for example, and then you're gonna find that one application is running fine, and then suddenly I want to upload another one, but I break the Jinx configuration file. So this is very important to test this. Don't run this until this is successful, otherwise your other applications will all fail, because actually it's one Jinx that's running everything. And if the main configuration file has a problem and you updated something that maybe you had a syntax issue in there, it will affect all your other running applications, and then you'll be like trying to troubleshoot it, and so make sure this is successful before you run this. Just remember that. Then after that, you can restart in Jinx. Okay, I've done that. Did I do that? I've done that. Yes. And then this is where the firewall comes in. Okay, there are different Jinx versions that you can enable, but you need to enable the firewall. Otherwise, people will not. If your firewall was up and you did not enable Jinx, it means that people won't access it, because the firewall will actually stop people from getting to port 80. All right, so there's port 80 and there's another SSL port, but if you do Jinx full, it will enable both of them, all of the ports that Jinx deals with. All right, so this is the one that you want to use, you want to enable, and this is only if you have a firewall up, and you should have your firewall up if you've been following along with my tutorial. So you need to allow Jinx, and then it will say that the rules are updated, which means that I do have my firewall up. Okay, cool. So once you've done that, you're good. Hey, so if I go now to karabo.ai, so let me go there, karabo.skolo.online. I should see my application there. There you go. At this point, you're good. And I've seen some, I don't know why people do it, run an application on HTTP, and you see that not secure there. This means they don't have an SSL certificate, and it's so easy to get an SSL certificate, which I don't know why people don't do it. All right, because especially if you're going to be taking payment information from people, personal information, logging in information, you have to have SSL on your website. It also affects your ability to rank on Google and things like that. Okay, so I'm definitely going to have my SSL certificate up, and obviously my steps show you exactly how to do that. You need to install Certbot in Jinx. Okay, so let's update our packages again, and then after we've updated that, it didn't take a lot because we just updated it earlier on when we were installing in Jinx. You need to install Certbot in Jinx. You might get an error with this command. I need to actually update my notes, but it's telling you. And when you get an error, I get people that copy and paste errors and send an email to me with a copy and paste an error, and I don't know what they expect me to do. 90% of errors will tell you exactly what the problem is. And don't be afraid of errors. Okay? Read the error so you can solve the problem. This error is very, very clear. It's telling you this package Certbot in Jinx is not available, but it is referred to by another package. This may mean that the package is missing or has been obsolete or is only available from another source. However, the following packages replaces it. Python 3 Certbot in Jinx. You see, so this note, I did it long time ago when I was still using Python Certbot in Jinx, but now obviously we are on Python 3. It's a new package. So all you need to do is, instead of installing Python Certbot in Jinx, you can just install Python 3 Certbot in Jinx, which is the new one that replaces the old one. So read what the error is saying, and the solution is normally inside of the error half of the time. But people don't read an error. They see an error and they lose their heads, and then they want to take a screenshot and send me an email with a screenshot of an error, and I'm thinking, just read the error. And then if you really can't figure it out, Google. A Stack Overflow is your friend. When I started development, I was on Stack Overflow more than I was on any other website. I was on Stack Overflow asking questions. Put on Stack Overflow what error you're getting, what code you're running, what you have been doing to try and fix it. 100% of the time someone is going to answer your question and give you a solution. Okay, don't email me your errors, because I'm not going to do anything about it, because I've got so much that I'm busy with. I cannot possibly look at each and every single line of code. There's like hundreds of people that email me errors, and I can't go through each and every single of your code to try and figure out what your problem is. I just wouldn't have the time. I'm not trying to be mean, but troubleshoot your problem. That is what makes a good developer. Okay, there you go. Now it's installing just fine, and you say yes, I'm good to go. And I'm going to show you Stack Overflow while this is running. Okay, Stack Overflow is your friend. If you don't know Stack Overflow, get introduced to Stack Overflow. Go to Stack Overflow, create a profile. You'll see I've got like a profile there. When I started, I was on Stack Overflow all the time. Actually, nowadays I go back to answer questions when I have time, because I'm giving back, because I learned a lot from Stack Overflow. It's a time to give back, and there's no community out there that is better than the development community. Developers are the most useful people in the world. That is why you can literally learn how to be a developer online. I did it. You can do it, because there's so much resources. There's so many websites out there to help you. There are people there that are willing to help you. Trust me. On Stack Overflow, you come over here, you click ask a question. After you've created a profile, you put what your problem is, and then you ask your question. But what's important for Stack Overflow, if you want to get a response, is tell people what you've done to try and solve the problem. Don't just like paste an error, because you won't get responses that way. I've seen people that just posting a question and expecting to just get responses. Tell them what you're doing. Hi, this is my name. I'm a new developer. I'm learning Python, Django. I'm trying to build this type of a website, and this is the code that I'm writing. Paste your code in there. This code, when I run this code, I get this error. This is what I've done to try and fix that problem. I try to fix this, I try to fix that, I try to fix that, but I'm not winning. These are the things, this is the error that I'm getting. This is my settings file. Put as much information as possible in there. Trust me, you will get an answer within a day. You will get an answer within a day. There are people who just sit in Stack Overflow answering questions, and they'll probably be better than me trying to answer your question. Okay, so do not email me your errors, please. Once you've done that, I think we have installed this one now. I'm going to clear that, and then I'm going to run this website. I'm going to copy this entire command as it is. Okay, before you run this sudo setbot command, you need to make sure that your application actually runs with the no secure. Okay, so make sure that your app actually works before you run this thing. Okay, and then look at what it means, what it's doing. It's installing a setbot using Jinx to your domain and www your domain. Remember, we didn't do the www one. Okay, so delete the www. This is only if you have both the domain and the www. So that -d is the domain, and our domain is actually let's put our domain here. Our domain is karabo.skolo.online, right? Karabo.skolo.online. Setbot in Jinx, please install a SSL certificate on this website. Click enter. It's going to ask you for an email address the first time, so just put in your email address there, admin.skolo.online, and then it's going to ask you to agree to the terms of services. I'm going to just say I agree, yes. And would you like to share your email address with EFF? Yes, I'm happy to do that. I mean, they're giving me I love the Setbot service and a free service they're giving us. I do not have a problem sharing my email address with them. And then they're going to do like some challenges to just make sure that, you do own this domain. It is on this virtual server that you're trying to install a certificate on it. And then at this point, it's going to ask you whether you want to redirect the HTTP traffic to HTTPS. You must always say yes to this one, because you don't want to serve both HTTP and HTTPS, because people can still choose to go to the HTTP version of your website. You don't want that. You want to redirect all the HTTP traffic to HTTPS, because that is a secure location. So here you want to say to. That's correct. And then what it's going to do is going to update your Jinx file to include the port for HTTPS traffic. So you don't actually have to do that. Setbot does that for you. All right. And then that's done. Okay. So to make sure that setboard actually did what I'm explaining that it has done, what you can do is that you can go and look at your Nginx file. It's going to look slightly different now, okay? So I'm going to just say nano. I'm not going to do sudo. I'm just going to do nano and open my Garabo file. All right. And you can see here, your Garabo file looks completely different, hey? Now this is the 301 redirect that I was telling you about. So what it's doing, it added a 301 redirect. If somebody goes to this Garabo Scholar online, it will return permanent 301 to HTTPS. Okay. And then it will now manage via port 443. Remember we had that port 80. It will manage via port 443, which is the SSL port. And yeah, so that port 80 is gone now. You've got port 443. All right. So it has completely edited your file. And this port 80 is this one there. So it has this other server with port 80. But if anybody goes to this port 80, it will just permanently redirect them to the HTTPS, which is this port 443. Okay, so you didn't make these changes. Setboard made them for you. So you're good to go. Now, what you're going to do is you don't need to even restart anything. You just go back to your, if you had your website running, you just restart it and you'll see now it has that lock next to it, which is the SSL, and you have fully deployed your website. Okay. Now we have taken there's a lot to still be done on here, and I think I've done too many videos. I'm not going to continue. I think I've taught you enough that you can do the rest on your own. Okay. Create a blog. If you want, you can be able to create a blog class. I've done a video on building a blog website. Go and check that one out and create a blog class and do blogs. All right. Finish up the pricing, take everything back to a production from the test mode. Obviously it's important. You want to bill real dollars. I've shown you how to do that. You should be able to do that. What I'm going to do personally is I'm going to fix this front end. I don't like this front end. It looks horrid, but you can do that. Okay, I've shown you how to do it. I've shown you where to get the templates from. If you followed along with me, you should have 100 templates for free right now. If you want better looking templates, you can go to a place like Enviro Elements, and then you can download a better looking template from Enviro Elements and make your website look nicer on the front end. I've showed you exactly how to do that. So I'm not going to do that on camera. I'm going to probably do that on my own, and I'm going to load this website on my own, and I'll show you when I've done it. I'll make another video. You guys can go in there. Maybe I'll do a white label thing that I get so many requests, people asking me to build this for them, and I'm doing the video so that you can learn how to do it yourself. Okay. So I think this will be the end of this tutorial series. Hey, anything from here you should be able to do on your own. I've taken you from nothing to a fully operational website that is deployed on an HTTPS server. And I think there was someone who asked how to do there was a question how to do a like a password change, changing your password, forgot password pages, because I only did the login page. All right, I won't cover that because I've covered it on many other tutorials. Guys, have a look on my YouTube channel. There is other Django tutorials that I've done where I've covered the entire authentication flow, and I've covered how to do the password reset, how to do forgot your password, and all of those kind of things. It's exactly the same. I think the purpose of this series was to show you how to use the AI generator, and I think I've covered that. The rest you should be able to figure out from my other Django tutorials. Go and have a look and piece things together to get your thing up and running. So guys, thank you. I hope you've learned a lot. I'm very curious to see what you guys are building, because you should be able to take what I've taught you here with the blog writer and apply any use case, whether it's and you can do it in multiple languages as well. It doesn't have to be English. The AI OpenAI is very, very versatile. Okay. You can use that use case. You can use any other use case. You can do a blog generator. You can do a cold email generator. You can do whatever. You just have to change the prompt. Change the prompt to whatever you want the prompt to be. Okay, so I've shown you the main use case, but you can adapt that to any other use case that you want. It's the exact same process. I'm not going to cover all the use cases over here. It's up to you to figure that out. I've given you the basics. Go and build something amazing. Show me what you've built. I'm curious. I want to see it. Okay. Leave a comment below and show me what you've built. Show me your website. I want to go to it and pay you to use it and see that actually what I'm teaching here is working out. And thank you guys. So we'll see you in the next tutorial series, guys. Okay. Sure.